Look at that. I love it. I was out here the other day with my daughter. We drove out in the car and I thought, well, it'd be cool to come back out here with the bike and maybe line it up and take a few pics. Look at that. Roached. I believe this might be my receipt for this rain suit. I paid $29 cash. $29 even. So for $29, I feel like if this thing gets you through one ride, it's worth it. And this thing's got me through a lot more than one ride. I rode my FJR to Indy one year for the MotoGP, and it rained 5 hours or 6 hours or whatever it was from Indianapolis back to Cambridge, Ohio, and it did okay. I'm gonna get wet. I'm gonna get wet. Ooh, I'm still gonna be wet when I get to where I'm getting. I can already tell. Up around my neck, there's no protection. My boots are just work boots, so they're not like super waterproof. I guess we'll see what happens. Ooh, that spot where the crotch of these is all ripped out, I'm definitely getting wet. I can feel it right down there in the worst spot. The worst thing about having a crotch rip in these pants is that, number one, all the water that's going on my tank bag is running right down into my crotch. All the water that's on my chest is running right down to my crotch. All the water that's in my legs is running right back to my crotch. I know this is the wrong direction to try to avoid the rain, but you know what? I haven't really had this bike out in the rain too much, and I'm interested to see how it performs. I'm interested to see how these tires do. I'm using the stock Dunlop K750s, and they are spanked. They're, I don't know how, what the percentage of tread is left on them. If you look at my odometer, I only have 1,930 miles, and these are the original tires. When I bought the bike, it had 560 miles on it, and the tread looked pretty good. But with me on this bike, no tire is going to hold up the way it'll hold up for somebody who weighs 150 pounds. That's just not a reality that you can count on. I weigh almost 400 pounds, and so I'm going to be harder on shocks. I'm going to be harder on seats. I'm going to be harder on tires and brakes and stuff like that, because it's, for me, riding without any gear for the bike, as far as the bike is concerned, I might as well be a 200-pound rider riding with a pillion and riding with all the gear to camp out in the wilderness for 6 months. It's like, it just is what it is, and I've always had to deal with that. I've always been a big guy. I'm really tall and I'm just big, and unfortunately, I've gotten used to the fact that tires don't last me the way they last other people. And so when I watch tire reviews, all I care about is whether or not the tire grips right, if it does what I want it to do on the road. I've already come to terms with the unfortunate reality that I will have to replace the tires more often than the average bear, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, I've come to terms with that reality, and I can't help it. There's nothing I can do about it, and because there's nothing I can do, there's no sense in me getting upset, and there's really no sense in me looking for something that's going to wear forever, because even for the average rider, if it wears twice as long, I'm still only going to get a couple thousand miles out of it. It's just the reality. So, I've been thinking lately about getting a set of TKC 70s or TKC 80s. I'm kind of in the middle. I've had several people try to convince me to get the 80s, and I've had several people try to convince me to get the 70s. My buddy Greg, who used to work for Continental, and that was the last project that he worked on before he left the company, was developing the TKC 70. He's really, he's a real champion of that tire. He's constantly telling me I should try it, and I probably will, but I think, I'm about to pull the trigger on some new tires, and I think for this first one, for this first one, I'm fairly certain that they're going to be TKC 80s. For the amount of off-roading that I like to do and the amount of situations that I want to get into off-road, it's worth it to me to just get the TKC 80s. I can't be worried about whether or not they last. I need to be worried about whether or not they have the traction that I need to go the places I want to go. And so from that perspective, even if they don't last, even if they're not the greatest on the road, I'm just going to have to pull the trigger and get those because I want the maximum of the grip.